Today we have some more really interesting news concerning Disney, their handling of the Star Wars franchise. Yesterday we broke down that the Disney CEO, Bob Iger, admitted that they had somewhat mishandled the Star Wars franchise as a whole and gave the fans a little bit too much too quickly. That being the fact that Disney Star Wars announced a major movie every single year after The Force Awakens. Of course with a more Skywalker saga-oriented movie, and then the year after an anthology film. Today though, we have even more information from Bob Iger's autobiography, where the original information in quotes came from. Today though, I want to explore some more comments that Bob Iger made in this autobiography, this time talking about George Lucas and his initial thoughts on Star Wars Episode 7, The Force Awakens. When The Force Awakens initially came out, George Lucas did in fact comment on it, saying that he believed that the fans would enjoy it a great deal. However, now it's revealed thanks to this behind the scenes information that George Lucas did not have very kind words for Star Wars Episode 7 initially. Again, in 2015, George Lucas said, quote, "I think the fans are going to love it." However, that same year, he also expressed that selling Star Wars to Disney was like, quote, "selling it to white slavers." But now some time has passed since The Force Awakens, and we get a look back at the curtain yet again of George Lucas's initial reaction to The Force Awakens, and Disney doing their first installment of a new Star Wars saga. In the autobiography, Bob Iger says that George Lucas did not hide his disappointment, saying, quote, "In each of the films in the original trilogy, it was important to George to present new worlds, new stories, new characters, and new technology. In this one," he said, "there weren't enough visual or technical leaps forward for George Lucas." In response, Bob Iger said this: "George wasn't wrong, but he also wasn't appreciating the pressure we were under to give ardent fans a film that we felt was quintessentially Star Wars. We'd intentionally created a world that was visually and tonally connected to the earlier films, not to stray too far from what people loved and expected. And George was criticizing us for the very thing we were trying to do." But those are pretty much all the comments that Bob Iger made about George Lucas, at least concerning The Force Awakens. Now let's go ahead and talk about it a little, and I think it shows the major difference between George Lucas, namely the prequel trilogy, and how Disney handled the sequel trilogy. With the prequels, it was very important to George Lucas again to make very many technical leaps, adding new worlds and stuff that we were unfamiliar with. Still though, I think now the prequels are quintessentially Star Wars, and they've been getting a whole lot more love recently. Love, I think, is long overdue for them. With The Force Awakens, at least on the other hand, Disney wanted to play it extremely safe. This was a new property and they wanted to win over fans, and the best way they believed to do so was to give fans something that they were familiar with, but again twisted ever so slightly, which was George Lucas's major criticism of their movie. As with the prequels, George Lucas took a drastically different approach, and I'm sure if you were in charge of Star Wars Episodes 7, 8, and 9, the approach would have been drastically different as well, and it would have been unrecognizable at first to the original Star Wars trilogy as well as the prequels, as it was important to George Lucas to make each trilogy extremely distinct. While on the other hand, it was the complete opposite goal of Disney, as they wanted to give us something familiar and win over fans. But now I want to hear your thoughts on this, and Bob Iger explaining George Lucas's initial thoughts about Star Wars The Force Awakens, and how he thought that Star Wars was too familiar in the hands of Disney, at least for Episode 7. I'm sure this will spark major debate in the comments down below, but who do you guys think is ultimately correct? Would you have liked to see George Lucas's vision of a drastically different Star Wars that we've ever seen before, or do you appreciate Disney for going with something that we know and was tonally correct with the original Star Wars trilogy? I'm interested to hear your guys' thoughts and takes on this. If we could get this video to 5,000 likes, that would be absolutely amazing. As always, my friends, thank you guys so much for watching the channel. Your support means the world to me. May the Force be with you, and have a great day.